Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and returning Henry Abbott. How are you, sir?
Back in the ring. David's actually home now, but he's got a lot going on. He needs a little minute. I respect that.
David is hilarious because he's such a creature of no, this is exactly how I do things. I don't like to deviate from what I like to do. Well, travel makes you deviate from what you like to do. And so now that he's back, he's gotta have a little bit of time to get himself and his bearings all back together and back to his walk, swim, or talking to his players, texting, get back on his little schedule. So
he's kind of he's low key workaholic though.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he just gets so much done, and I remember saying basically, he's in LA training a bunch of players. He also has clients who are active in the playoffs, so he's working with every day, and he's reviewing film, all this stuff. He's flying, and I was like, look, man, if you just don't want to, if you can't work for us right now, understood, right? And I kind of suspected this would happen, but I was like, but you could just record a little something and we'll figure. And he did a ton of work for us while he was there.
He did a lot.
He doesn't turn it off. There's a lot of go in that guy.
That's it. He's always on the go. Grind. Yeah. That's the work. It's all about the work. That's true for any elite athlete, right, Henry? We as fans get to see the end result, but if they, especially the best ones, don't love the work and the process, we ain't going to see all that fast, fun, shiny hammer dunk, tip dunk. We won't see any of that if they don't enjoy the work.
Super underrated how much it's just a really hard job. It's a super competitive job. And probably if you were really good friends with an NBA player, you would stop being really good friends with them because their work would keep getting in the way of everything you were ever going to do. I had this long, weird conversation with JJ Redick when he was still playing about he would try to go on a vacation and he's a dad and a husband and and they would be the 1 week a year where he would assign himself don't work out so his body can recover. It's better for you to take, and he would slip away for 2.5 hour workouts, you know, and it was an ongoing marital issue. And he was it's a little kooky how much work you have to do.
I mean, you have to be kind of OCD to be a pro athlete. I mean, you have to be, because it's, like Henry said, it is fucking insanely difficult job that is highly competitive.
Yeah.
And if you're not working, your competitor, they're definitely working. And that's constantly going in your brain, always.
Yeah. I mean, I think my personal theory of mine is that I think a lot of OCD people make it. But I think that they'd mostly be better if they could dial it back. If JJ Redick could take his week, he's better.
Yeah.
Wins more games, shoots better, stronger ligaments, all that stuff. Right? And so there's a OCD often is the thing that gets you there. But that's also drives so much of the insanity of the sport. Thibodeau's a perfect example. He's some guy rests for 6 minutes. He's like, oh my, you have to do too much. I do think that on the bleeding edge of this high performance thing, it's go super hard.
Yeah.
Go super hard. You have to go super hard.
Yep.
But this thing that someone else out there is working and so you can't rest, that's the dumbest shit ever.
Agreed.
Bro, you gotta, the way exercise works is you stress your body and then while it's resting, it recovers and grows stronger.
Correct.
Don't forget that step.
That's the biggest part. You have to do the recovery part or else the work didn't matter.
You can get injured a lot of different ways. And one of them is overwork,
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's dead on. But so you mentioned the OCD, right? So it's the gift and the curse. The thing that helps you is also the thing that hurts you simultaneously, right? And it's that balance. Woo, it's hard. All right.
Just need a little hug, you want to work out 365 days a year? Let's go 330.
Let's go 330, right?
You're going to be fine. I promise it's going to be okay. Yeah.
I mean, Henry, if you look at all sports around the world, whatever it was, football, basketball, doesn't matter. The offseason is so limited for these dudes. I'm just guys, you have to rest. How are you going to make it to next season?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, there are the people who decide this, right, are, they'll probably be fine. That's literally the analysis, right?
Yes.
Well, Jimmy Butler's not fine. Giannis isn't fine. Ooh, actually, Jarod, this is a deep, dark, unscheduled thought that occurred to me in the middle of the night last night. I'm sometimes I feel like fandom is a little selfish. I'm part of this too, right? But
we all are.
Let's say you're a Bucks fan. Back when they were alive in the playoffs, everybody in Milwaukee, I'm assuming, was obsessed with Giannis's health, right? Why? It's they would say because they want to try to win this playoff series, but also because he's their guy, right? He's almost like family. Okay. on that second point though, how's he doing now?
No one cares.
Does anybody care?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
no one cares.
Is it in the paper?
Yep.
It might be. I don't know. But like,
right.
But all of these players who got hurt and then their season ended, like, if you're not worried about them now, you're not like family. Like, that's not your guy. They're just people that you want to have entertain you.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And like, that's a different relationship that the player might not find so friendly. Like,
it's definitely not friendly. No, listen, we talked about this yesterday, right? Fandom is inherently a selfish act, right? Because it is about how you feel, and you need your players and whomever to validate those feelings. That's what, and it's irrational fandom, right? You don't want truth, you don't want logic, you don't want reason. I emote and I want validate these emotions now. And it's like, okay, but there's a cost to that, right? And I'm with you. Like, if you don't care about Giannis right now, like, well, then do you really care about him at all? Or is it just about, are you winning these games? And yeah, it's brutal, man. We are at a stage right now where, these guys there's more and more games. The calendar's getting longer and longer, except that the actual calendar doesn't get longer. It's only 12 months. And now it's basically you have some kind of activity all year round. And that's not good for the body. During the playoffs, Henry, when players are injured, it's so funny when I often hear fans say, oh, yeah, I hope we get this series over short so we get those extra couple days. And I'm like, but it's not how it actually works, right? If someone's got like a torn labrum, an extra 48 hours, like, ultimately is not the thing, right? Like, this is a larger issue we need to address. But, again, you're so narrow focused.
Well, one of the issues that has come up in this book that I may have mentioned 70 or 80 times, that is like the obsession of my life. And I'm sorry that I keep dropping the hammer.
Listen, no, it's awesome.
From retailers in about a year.
There you go.
But one of the little things is that like Tom Thibodeau and Marcus Elliott, who the book is about, are actually very friendly. They both have Harvard connections, and they like to have lunch together, and they chat and laugh and blah blah blah. And on the one hand, Marcus is like the high priest of injury prevention, and Thibodeau's Thibodeau, right? But Marcus is like, we actually agree on the bigger point, which is that we both think players are underworked. It's like, we just don't agree what the work is. And so to me, one of the things about the schedule you're talking about that's so year round is like, when do you do the crazy hard work that actually makes you more resilient and stronger? And that work takes recovery time, right? Like, you got to do these really hard workouts that aren't basketball. Like the exercise that you get from basketball comes with, according to one little study, 4 times the injuries per minute than the exercise you do in the gym to prepare for basketball, right? So it's like, you got to do that other kind of work.
Yep.
And they just don't have, like, I think our sport is so crazily organized that there actually isn't any time all season to do a meaningful workout. And like, you're better off just resting because you're overworked from play. But it's like, that's not how you get buff. That's not how you get like all your ligaments and tendons and your movement, your biomechanical assessments don't improve with this program.
You're certainly not doing it during the season. If I got a game Monday and then we're off Tuesday and then we're in another city on Wednesday, when is the workout getting done? Not on Tuesday when I'm flying. Like, right? Not on Wednesday at the new place. Like, it just, so the schedule during the season doesn't allow it. And the off season doesn't allow it, particularly if you're someone who plays internationally, if you're a country or whatever, or you're deep in the playoff run. When are you going to do these? First of all, when are you going to rest from the season that just ended? Then start your build-up process. I mean, think about it. If anybody's playing the Olympics this summer who is also advancing deep in the playoffs like now, when is their recovery coming?
And also, I mean, I understand the dream team nature of Grant Hill's lineup, which is like exciting, but like, these dudes are like 34-year-old, 39-year-old. Like, God. I'm just like, just Henry. Strictly as like a ligament assessment. I'm like, you guys, like, I hope everybody's okay.
Henry, I love these guys on this team as much as anyone, but I'm like, why is every 35-year-old superstar going to the fucking Olympics? Why?
Like, at least it's good for the 22-year-olds that we're watching in the playoffs right now.
They get to rest. It's like, I just don't.
Like, Jalen Brunson needs this like a hole in the head. You know what I mean?
Well, he just got hand surgery yesterday. Look, please, someone with, I know how important it is. Oh, Jarod, he wants to represent us. I get all that shit. But dude, the minutes you played, my guy, let's just take some time to chill this summer. Like, I promise you, it'll be better for you come next season. I promise.
And there's so many, like, Another really weird part of them. So Derek Lively's been fantastic.
Awesome.
What is he? I think he just turned 20.
20, yeah. Played less than 1,000 minutes this season? What do you play
I
this
think
season?
that's right. Not much. And there are stretches of games where he's the best player on the floor, right? He was like everywhere. Super bouncy, super fun. So the Mavericks played him. Hats off to Jason Kidd for playing him, right? But there are players of the Derek Lively. When they got Derek Lively, like Omax Prosper was seen as maybe the better prospect, right? Like that dude is fresh as a freaking daisy right now and didn't get the royal jelly from Jason Kidd all year, right? I don't know if Omax is the right one. And is he Canadian?
You think so?
Where's he from?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where he's from. He might not even qualify for Team USA. But my point is, there's some very, very good ligaments. There's some of the best players in the world have scarcely played this year. Like, let them tear it up out there, you know?
Listen, I am with you, and I don't think people really understand that, Henry. But we'll get into that more as we talk on today's show. Last night's game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I think for a lot of fans, the of the two, the one that most of them want to see more, just because of the excitement of Anthony Edwards, one of these young 22-year-old ascending stars we talked about. But in that game, actually, it was an older man who was able to gotta do his thing. And older, I mean, not old in like life, but old in basketball terms. Kyrie Irving, I think just turned 30. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. He was awesome last night.
He was awesome.
I mean, the amount of times he did moves with just strictly his left hand. I was like, wait a minute, that's your offhand. Surge dribble, left hand, sprint by people, left hand float finish over a 7'8" wingspan. I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. Like, he's just so fucking good.
If you're going to copy someone's workout routine, like Kyrie and TJ McConnell's the other one, who's 31, I think. And like those two dudes are I think the only people who are moving super explosively and freely and moving their hips and pivoting and like past the age of 25, like 26, right? Yeah. Like everybody else is like, oh, I'm coming, but they're just like, Harry moves like a dream. Like it's like
he does.
He's
an
incredible mover. I know that he has his own little workouts. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Like he has a whole bunch of stuff that nobody else does. And I know LeBron used to make fun of him for it, and like he would do all, and then LeBron started copying it. But but like that. And then one of the things was when in Cleveland, Kyrie and Amon Shumpert would play extensive post-practice one-on-one where it only counted off, offhand, off foot, right? Like jump in just weird, which makes you innovate all of these crazy finishes. You're always guarded. And like, that's what he does all game.
All game. That's why when he finishes, you're like, oh, because he practiced that a gazillion times. That's why it ends that way. No, he was amazing in that game. You mentioned, all right, Kyrie moving so fluidly, someone moving a lot less fluidly, Luka Doncic, one of his teammates. Now, Luka, clearly, he's hurt for sure. Like, there is clearly some injuries going on there. But he's young, Henry. He's 24?
I think he's 25.
Maybe 25.
But I'm not sure.
But a lot of minutes on that body.
Yeah, and he's just, I mean.
25.
I watched the first half of the game, and I got too tired because I'm an old man, and I went to bed. And but I went to, and my son came home from work, and I was like, it's just like, it pains me to watch Luka be so lazy. Like, the turnover, and he's just like, or they're he's guarding Jaden McDaniel, who stands in the corner. Let's talk about that later too. Why would you give Luka a stationary player to guard?
Make him move.
So he's got he's just on the edge of the paint, sort of one step toward Jaden McDaniel, who had a great shooting night, and not a coincidence, right? Like the offense usually runs toward whoever Luka's quote guarding. But then half the time when McDaniel catches the ball, Luka just kind of waves an arm for someone else to run over there, right? He's just, and then if there's a turnover, like he's just like, oh God, I can't possibly run down there, right? Like if this happened on my 8th grade team with Coach Flood, like you're out of the gym. Like you're doing like something in the parking lot, right? Like you're not even welcome. Like it's just so lazy. But this is kind of the NBA that we have now, where like his marshaling resources, like him saving himself play after play after play after play, and never jumping almost, like is a winning formula. Literally, he won the game. Like, and I don't know, the play that really got me was with 103 left in the fourth quarter, it's a 2-point game.
Mm-hmm.
He caused a turnover. Brilliant. His hand-eye coordination is like ridiculous.
So good. So good.
And so the Mavericks raced the floor, and they're maybe going to get an easy bucket, which they could really use. And then the camera swings left to right as it does, and the Mavericks are racing, and the Timberwolves are racing.
Luka not racing.
And then Jason Kidd calls a timeout. Because where the fuck is Luka? What the fuck is he doing? Like, he's 25, which is, it's a little older, but like Kyrie was down there. Like, he can't run. He honestly, I seriously think that if you actually watched the whole fourth quarter and just watched Luka and count how many steps he ran in the fourth quarter, it's not a big number. No. It's not a big number. Like, there were a few, I saw a few, but like, and that to me is, I don't even blame Luka. Like, I blame the NBA. Like, this is actually, Jokic plays a similar style.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we want a league where Anthony Edwards is the skeleton key that unlocks everything.
Mm-hmm.
With his Michael Jordan-esque approach to the game, flying.
Literally.
It's fun to watch, but we overwork everybody so much that the actual formula is this ground bound, shuffle along, creaky knee.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as fun to watch.
Definitely not as fun to watch. And I wonder, so again, obviously the schedule's a big part of it. I do think he's injured at some point. He's got something going on with those knees for sure. Because every time he falls down, it's like, oh shit.
I know.
He's like,
he kind of resets his face, I will be strong. Poor guy,
I mean, how much for him too, Henry, is because remember, he started playing pro ball at a very early age.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit more wear and tear on the body than maybe some other 25-year-olds.
Yeah. Though they don't play too many games.
They play less games in Europe, for sure.
I forget the number, but I think the schedule's better.
More physical, though, the game. They hack a lot. They give them play a lot more physical.
Yeah. He's, I think it's wonderful if you can learn how to be effective without having to be super hard on your body,
Yeah.
When the Sixers made the 2001 finals, the Lakers assistant coach, I think his name was Phil Handy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that ringing a bell? I think that's his name.
He is it. Yeah. Phil Handy.
Great guy. But basically Iverson in game one scored a bazillion points. And everyone was like, well, basically Kobe can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no. We don't want him to do that because it cuts up your body. Exact quote, cuts up your body. And I didn't even really understand what he meant. But now I do. Anthony Edwards plays in a way that cuts up your body, right? He's going so hard. But Luka doesn't.
No, not playing that game. No.
He's cut up his body anyway.
Well, it's a war of attrition, right? And sadly, at this time of the year, that's not what the NBA the best version of his product should not be, right? I always go back to the Prez line from The Wire. Nobody wins. One side just loses more slowly than the other, right? That should not be what we look forward to, right? It should be people at their peak, going to win. It's I'm going to lose slower. That's all.
I mean, something wins. I don't what succeeds in this business. I guess the right answer is Michael Jordan, right? What's he doing, right?
Right. Yeah.
He's flying over people, right? Yeah. He's leaping buildings in a single bound, right?
He's Superman.
That's not. I mean, these honestly, we were talking before, but despite all of my complaining, I find these playoffs wildly entertaining.
Very fun.
I'm having a blast. I kind of have to watch the games, but I'm watching them. I'd watch them if I didn't have to watch them, right? And my son's joining, which isn't just habitually what would happen. And so hats off to everybody who's just killing it. But at the same time, it'd be so much better with all of the players who are out injured, out there competing and going hard. And frankly, in a smaller view of that, so mostly I would blame the league, right?
Of course.
But in the smaller view, I'm okay, if Luka can't jog to make the game tying play with a minute left in the fourth quarter, does anybody have a job of delivering him to crunch time ready to go? Is that anybody's job? Yeah, it's completely fucking Jason Kidd's job, right? It's most of his job, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with Anthony Edwards. Reggie Miller went off about how Anthony Edwards didn't do, I think I wrote it down here. So he's guarding Kyrie and he trash talked Kyrie. So he was working really hard on D.
Mm-hmm.
Ends up 2 for 9 in the second half. He attempted, if with his game, right? The thing that's most difficult to guard is him attacking the rim.
Yes.
He did that once in the whole fourth quarter and missed.
He's dead.
And he had shot a couple threes. I think he missed them both. So like, okay, well, we're trying to get that guy to the fourth quarter ready to help his team. And literally just substitution patterns made the best players in the game among the worst players in the game. They both were negative and plus minus, both stars, Anthony Edwards and Luka.
Yep.
And the best players, and this is, I'm not saying that this is the be all end all stat for this. 1 game plus minus is a stupid assessment.
It is.
But Derek Lively, who was, I mean, I think I was out of college when he was born. For sure I was. Like,
yeah, definitely was 20. Yeah.
I was well out of college. He had the best plus minus in the game by a country mile, right?
What was Kyle Anderson's plus minus? I feel like he played really well yesterday.
I think
my guess is he was positive, but
I think that I looked it up and that the Wolves bench were all like flat or a little down.
Okay.
But I did note that like, so Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid are the only bench players who played. They played 16, 17, and 24 minutes. That bench, by the way, also has Monte Morris, TJ Warren, Jordan McLaughlin, zero time. A bunch of other players too.
Yeah.
And so you're like, man, I don't like.
Yeah.
What would we have done to get these two stars to crunch time balling, like playing real basketball? Like, why don't we do that stuff?
Well, we know, right? Stuff we talked about on Monday's show, which is when you're thinking about developing your team and creating your team, right?
Yeah.
How do we have a roster full of people who can help us win possessions? And how do we develop a roster as such so that when it comes time for the postseason, we have 9, 10 guys we rely on who can play meaningful minutes? Now, I know when we say that, Henry, we make it sound easy. It's fucking hard work to get 10. Really hard. But that is your job. That's the job, right? Like,
and you're coping with so much. Like, I don't know Derek Lively, but like, I guarantee you that most teams wouldn't get him here because along the way they'd be like, oh, what a knucklehead. He's too young. He doesn't know this. You know, read this coverage. He doesn't know. Pardon me.
Bless you.
Thank you. But that's the cost of health, right? Like the Pacers are TJ McConnell's 31, Pascal's 30.
Miles Turner's probably
27. I think I looked it up. Everybody else is 23, 24. Like everybody. That seems to be a pretty good recipe, right? Like who's beat up on that team? Well, kind of no one, right? Like they look pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get like, 10 guys who you trust, 7 of whom are 25 or younger? That seems like a really good model to me, and not one that's been well discussed. They have a very low payroll. It'll be much bigger next year, but
they pay people for sure.
But yeah, I think that's we talk a lot about how to get your like next star to help the Knicks or whatever. But like, man, no, just get an armada of these. You probably want to get Aaron Nesmith, when he's 22. You want to get 3 of them.
Yep.
Because they're not all going to work out.
Right. Yeah.
But they have Aaron Nesmith playing really meaningful crunch time minutes against the team that rejected him. And those players, there's a lot of Aaron Nesmiths around.
Tons. The league is full of them. They're all over the place. But again, that's on you as a team to identify and, as David says, develop them. That's what you get. That's the job. Work and make them better. But that's not what most people are invested in doing. Oh, just get me fucking Kevin Durant or whoever. It's like,
it's a fun model though. The Pacers are doing stuff to like there are owners right now who are like, wait a minute, like you told me we have to pay luxury tax and we're out. And these guys are, I think, 24th in salary, and they're in. Like,
and look at all the playoff revenue they're getting this year. Like, this is all nice for them. They're loving it. Is it still the Simons? Is it still Herb Simon?
Yeah, Herb Simon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, kudos to them. Henry, another thing, we talked about Kyrie, and this is something we talked about yesterday in our group chat. And David mentions this all the time. This idea that there is no such thing as rookie mistakes. Everyone makes rookies, and everyone makes them. The idea is that veterans, in theory, make them less because they're more practiced and rehearsed in what's going to happen. But, they make mistakes none the same. How much does experience matter? Because when we talked yesterday, you're like, you believe it matters, but you're not sure exactly how much experience matters versus being in your 24 and super springy legs that I can fly up and down the floor.
I mean, Derek Lively plus 17. You know what I mean? Like youngest guy out there. Like he doesn't have any experience. You know, like,
Zero.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So he can run and jump and, you know, way better than everyone else in the game. He's super long. And for the experience, we'd have to give him the lowest possible rating. And he was the most
best player.
Well, they played very well when he was in the game. Anyway.
Yes, correct.
So yeah, I feel like it's just basketball. I think that the things that work in basketball work in crunch time, and they work in the playoffs, and they work every time. Like if you gotta stop them getting buckets, you gotta get buckets. And like mostly what works in that is, you know, length and a game plan and athleticism and reading the floor and all that stuff, right? And I think we make it weird by making it like, no, there's a special magic temple that you enter when like the playoffs begin and then crunch time. And it's like, I think actually like treating it like normal is a great improvement in your mental game, right? Like if you treat it like the stakes are so high, then you get all precious and weird and tight. And like, so, you know, I think experience can really help with that. Maybe you have a mental performance routine that you are happy with that you've developed, or actually this one, like a friend of mine has this thing. She's like, oh, once you're a 35-year-old athlete and you're still good at it, like she's like, I know you have your like home routine down. I know you eat well.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be a 35-year-old athlete
Correct.
if you didn't, right? So like you might have some stuff. But I think that so all that's real, and I generally agree with the idea that like experience matters. You know, maybe next year the Thunder go further just because they went this far this year and it put some resolve in them or some enlightenment or something. But I also think that, you know, when you get older, you stop losing the physical advantages, and so you start hyping up the experience advantages. And when you get even older, you retire and become a TV commentator. And then they just go in this like made up fantasy land of like, all that matters is the grit and the grind and the decades. And it's like, that's just wrong. It's just not true. Like you guys are just shining up what you have, right? Like that's, I understand why you feel that way. It's like, actually, it's a little bit like me, like teaching my son to drive. Like he's got really good, he doesn't wear glasses, right? He's like sharp. You know, his senses are good. But I'm the one who's like, I shouldn't have pulled out then. You know what I mean? It's like I have something he doesn't have. I've avoided accidents for a long time, and there's some little tricks of the trade I can share with him.
Right.
But it's not everything.
Right.
It's a little, it's what I got, you know? It's like
with the little sliver.
What he has, it's pretty fucking good, you know? Like
sharper reflexes. I see it, Dad. I already got it. I already saw it before you did.
At some point you're like, just stop talking, old man, you know, like you're not helping, you know? like
you're not helping. No, it look, it's fascinating. I think that series, you know, look, despite you know, a less than stellar fourth quarter and Anthony Edwards being exhausted, this is a one possession game. So I see this being a long series. You know, I'm curious to see how, you mentioned there's other players on the bench who haven't been dusted off this postseason of Minnesota. Do those guys get any kind of playing time? And I checked the plus minus, by the way. Kyle Anderson was 0, so he was just, you know, net neutral. Nas Reed, those are minus 11, right? And he plays a ton of minutes with the starters. Rudy, by the way, plus 12. Shock of all shocks.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, a lot of stuff happens in plus minus that you just can't really understand.
But... Yeah. No, look, and I think, again, you know, the way this Timberwolves team plays defense, really, really exciting. Ant's fun. There's a bunch of guys. Jaden McDaniels shot well, 6 of 9 from 3 yesterday. So good. Like,
I love him.
Drafted first round, 28th, I believe he was
picked
in this draft.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, again, but long, which athletic, like what does David always say? The hardest thing to do in the NBA is score over length. Fucking hard to score on Jaden McDaniels. He's just big, long dude.
Near perfect defender.
Yeah.
And you know, there's like, you know, we're going to talk about the draft soon. And there's like, you know, Rob Dillingham and Isaiah Collier are like very talented with the ball. But those guys are like, maybe you can't put them on a team and win a championship because they need the ball and they're not elite with the ball yet. And they might never get elite with the ball. And but Jaden McDaniel type, like,
that's who you want.
Was he? At one point he was 5 of 6 from 3. I don't know what he finished.
Yeah. I mean, he finished. He was 5 of 5. Like, you think he made his first 6 of 9. I think he finished.
Okay, 6 of 9. Yeah, and he guards the heck out of Luka. Like, you can plug that player
anywhere.
That's Scottie Pippen. You know, like you can plug that player into every single team and they get better, right? Like,
well, there you go, right? I think everyone's looking for the Jordan Ant-Man, right? We want that player, but it's like, you know, but Scottie Pippen, get a bunch of those guys. That's the thing.
It's a nightmare to play against that,
Nightmare.
It just is. Also, the other thing I've noticed is like, I think it's worth thinking about like who's like your fourth best offensive player. Like, so for the Celtics, this might be Drew Holiday. You're going to end up in the playoffs with like ISOs for that guy, because that person will have like maybe the only weak wing defender on the court, whatever. It's like, okay, so that's who Tyrese is. Tyrese has to guard somebody, right? So you're going to be tempted. It's like, well, is your fourth best defender good? And is your fourth best offensive player good? Like, kind of matters. And to me, I'm like, well, like Jaden McDaniels can handle that. And also having him in this roster, with Alexander Walker and Anthony Edwards, it means like there's not a bad defender on the court for the Timberwolves, right?
No.
Is there anyone who's not?
Only Conley because he's old, but like he's super smart and knows how to position himself and where to be. And then what helps him make up for it is all the length he's surrounded by.
Yeah.
So no real bad defenders.
You don't end up losing because you have Mike Conley in the game. Like,
exactly. So you're good. Yeah. And I think again, kudos to Tim Conley, I guess, right, for building this team. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, the Rudy Gobert trade! How stupid was that?" I'm like, no, it was pretty smart. Like it was a good bet, right? It was. We think Ant's going to ascend and be awesome, which he is. And as you know, it's so in fashion to hate Rudy because for a million reasons, he's French, whatever, all the things. But that year in and year out, that dude's on-off numbers just are what they are, which say when he is on the floor, your team generally outscores the other team. I don't know what to tell you, people. Like that's a good thing. That's what you want.
And like, I mean, how many years has it been like, what are we going to do with Karl Anthony Towns? And he makes so much money, but he's kind of soft or whatever.
Right.
Like, that's all done now, right?
Yeah.
Like, now it's like, is he the best player on that team? Like, maybe, like
he might be.
I mean, this is like spicy Karl Anthony Towns now.
It is.
Right?
And I love it because Cat's he's so talented. He's so talented. And yes, I get it. He makes boneheaded plays all the time. And like, he's kind of goofy. His voice is weird. Like, I get it. But these are all, going back to the fandom thing, Henry, none of that has to do with truth, reason, and logic. That's just about how you feel. You don't like him. So these are all reasons to support why you don't like him.
Yeah. I do like him. I just want to be clear.
But like, not you.
Yeah, no.
The average fan.
I went from like, he's been a sort of he's been a figure in the NBA for a long time now, right? And like, it's always been a little like, David would make the very good point that he's like the best mid-range shooter since Dirk, right? Collins his numbers are ridiculous. He can really shoot.
He's told us numerous times, I'm the best big man shooter ever. And everybody's like, you're such a joke. And it's like, well, he's not actually wrong.
I mean, you want him to shoot it, like,
right.
That's just how it is. And he's very hard to guard. Like, but now that it's adding like, I mean, let's say this might be history. Like we had a center, if we count him as a center, I think we do, like shoot a logo 3 and make it in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Like Robert Parrish is like,
sorcery. Get this man out of here.
It wasn't that long ago we were blown away that like Steph would shoot from there.
Yeah.
Karl Towns shot from there.
Yeah.
And made it. And then they ran like, and Edwards was so tired that they ran like their big play when they needed a bucket for Cat. It looked like to me the play was for Cat to shoot a 3. Like,
guess what? As they can, Cat's always been elite offensively. Always. Since birth, basically. Like, he's so good. Like, fucking run plays for him. That'll work. Because they have no answer for him over there on Denver. So, on Dallas, excuse me. So,
yeah.
That's what I do.
And some defensive assignments he's really good at too, right?
Yes.
Like it turns out that's an improvement, I guess. So.
Yeah, he definitely. Listen, he was giving Jokic some fits in the last round. Okay, like he's nobody's all defensive first team. Yeah, we get that, but that's why you got Rudy. And you got all the other guys around him, so it's not bad. All right, guys, we'll be back after a brief commercial break. All right, Henry, you had a piece come out yesterday about some observations you made in the other series, Eastern Conference Finals, Game 1. The Celtics won that game in overtime over the Indiana Pacers. Your first, and I hate these kinds of questions, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Did the Celtics win that game, or did the Pacers lose that game?
Well, David Thorpe would say the referee lost that game.
He would. David definitely.
He's as mad as he gets. I think about that particular thing. I don't know. I mean, this is the game where you take turns trying to make buckets, and if more of them go in, so the exact order of events is like kind of a coin flip, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that like my thought was that the Celtics are supposed to be heavy favorites.
Yes.
I'm sure they are in Vegas, right? I don't even know.
Oh yeah, they are, no doubt.
And it didn't play like that at all, right? Like even though they had absurdly short turnaround after Game 7,
Yeah, Celtics
one
were super
real day
rested,
off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Pacers came in and did everything they had to do to win it. Everybody played well. It was a really fun game, and with some magic. I mean, really like crazy stuff happened. So what reminded me, the Pacers are inbounding the ball up 3 with 10 seconds left. Is that where we were?
Yep.
And then just every single thing broke perfectly.
Correct for the
Celtics after that. I mean, the Celtics' chance of winning, I think David told me he looked it up, was 2.7% at that moment.
Was it? I figured it'd even be less. I thought it might be 99.9 at that point. I was like, oh, well,
yeah. And then, So I don't know. To me, like, the Celtics got one in the bank. That matters in this count. When you're counting to 4, getting one is huge.
Getting one matters. Yep.
But in terms of like assessing where the teams are, I'm like, that's a big scare for the Celtics. Like,
I agree.
Like I don't know. Maybe they'll make some adjustments, but I don't think like there's so many things I thought about that game. But one of them was the Pacers have 3 mobile big men: Pascal, Miles Turner, and
Isaiah Jackson,
Roby Toppin. And Isaiah Jackson.
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Actually, there's a 5th one who I'm forgetting.
Jarris Walker.
Well, no, but Jalen Smith.
Oh, Jalen Smith. Yes, Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Jarris Walker. I don't think is going to play. Maybe he will, but I don't think the Celtics have the right personnel right now.
They need Porzingis, which
for any of them. Like Obi Toppin had a monster. Was it the second quarter?
He's so springy and bouncy. Henry can just fly up the floor.
Springy. He's the Derek Lively of this series. Like, and they got some out of that, but I'm like, I think it's just. I mean, it's like Drew Holiday's guarding Pascal Siakam a bunch of possessions. I'm like, because they don't have anybody else who can do that. I don't know how I didn't notice this about the Celtics. I'm stupid. Roster, but like they have Al Horford is a big man, and they have Luke Cornett, and then they have like my mom. I don't even know who's after that. Like
they have an injured Kristaps, and no, but this is what's hurting them right now because again, Al has to play more minutes because he has to start, which is Al is like the ageless wonder in so many ways, right? Still very effective and all that. But the problem is he has to rest at some point during a game. Which means now what? Luke Cornett, which is fine, but you probably don't want too much Luke Cornett, right? Because he's not.
I think it was 13 minutes was all they.
Yeah, because he's not a mobile big man, right? He's not very mobile. That's not his strong point.
He gets the most out of what he's got. He's killing it. But yeah, I think the Knicks got excited about the Pacers' up and down style in games 1 and 2, and meanwhile, the whole time Rick Hollow was like, "We shall see how this comes to pass." And when you're tired, and end of the series, right? Like there were some moments where the Celtics were like uncharacteristically flying up and down the court, and I was like, well, we shall see. And I'm not saying that I predict the Pacers are going to win this series, but I'm saying like I think we probably get to game 6 or 7, and then anybody's game and. As a fan, I'm just like I don't have a rooting interest in this one. I'm like it's just so fun.
That's what you want as a fan. You want compelling, right? Again, remember what everybody said. Let's play these games because we want to get this team. We want to. Well, guess what? Milwaukee got Indiana. How'd that work out? Milwaukee, not great, right? Like everyone thought, oh, Indiana's we talked about experience before about they got no playoff experience. Those guys are. Guess what, Knicks? You're home. Like. They're in the conference finals, so anything can happen. I think 6. I said 6 or 7 for sure. And if it goes 7, that means by definition it's a coin flip series. Anybody can win game 7, right? So,
and Porzingis,
he matters for them. Huge
players return. He does returning from injury players. Like, I don't know. You never know from outside. Like, are they bringing him back when he's like ready? He's totally fearless and ready to just hammer dunk on people, or they're bringing him back like the first possible day he could play. Like if it's that, like at this time of season, if you're timid, like you just hurt your team. You just can't hang, right? Like you need to be so aggressive.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. He probably in the big picture, healthy Porzingis absolutely helps them, but if he comes back and takes minutes from someone who's got this sort of like ride or die mentality, then that might
not
hurt
great.
them.
No, I'm with you 100%. I love, again, how Indiana approached it. After the game, Jaylen Brown said, in his national broadcast walk-off interview, he was like, you got to be disciplined when you're playing Indiana. And they use the word discipline a couple times. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's telling to me, right? Because of what David said. And like, you get caught up in they're taking it's basketball. There's a rhythm to basketball, right? Everybody who's played pickup knows that. If the other team is running up and down, you just fall into, because that's what they're doing. It's a natural sort of like reaction to have. But if that's not how you play and are conditioned to play, it's going to hurt you eventually in the long run, right? And I think that, again, Jalen said, we got to be disciplined when we play these guys. Got to be disciplined. And they were lucky, as we said, to kind of escape this one because everything sequentially broke right late for them, including some non-foul calls. Shout out to David Thorpe.
There was the Pacers got great looks. Like the Celtics are seen to be way better because they have much better defense, right? But it's not a great defense against the Pacers, right? I remember one play where they did all the regular stuff you do to get a stop, and they basically got a stop. And as I remember it, like Pascal ends up with the ball without his dribble, kind of on the right post, and there's not much, 5 seconds on the shot clock. Mm-hmm. Somebody look this up for me. You're gonna find I'm wrong with every single specific, but the basic concept is right. So like, but he tosses the ball to Tyrese at the 3-point line, runs over, sets the screen for Tyrese. Tyrese drives. Now that we're down to like 3-2. So the defense gloms to Tyrese, who slips a pass to Pascal, who gets a wide open layup. I'm like, they have the best guard defenders in the league on the Celtics, and they had the shot clock run down almost to 0.
Didn't matter.
And the Pacers still got a layup. Yep. I was like, it is like a magical offense. It does so much good stuff.
This is so one of the things that people always say is the NBA is a copycat league, right? And the thing that everyone should have been copying, and not just from the Warriors, but the Spurs before them, wasn't the volume of threes. That wasn't it. It was the constant ball and player movement. That was the thing to copy, because that is hard to guard. When everyone is constantly moving around, as David says, is quoting Hubie Brown, you set screens for one reason. You're thinking, oh my God, what about once you're in that helter-skelter brain mode on defense, problems for you, right? And you want chaos. That's what you want to create. And the Pacers do an excellent job of creating chaos. And
openness really, like advanced analytics have come so far, but like the big early lesson is like, so we used to think like, oh, let's say like if Derek Fisher runs out and tries to guard Dirk to stop through, everyone's like, oh my God, what can he do? The answer is actually like
a lot.
Anybody guarding you makes your field goal percentage drop a lot.
Yes.
And so like openness is what's magic. Mm-hmm. That's when the buckets really start to flow like water. And like, if you don't have an offense that design, like the Mavericks don't get, other than those little lobs, mm-hmm. right? Like they don't generate a lot of open looks. No. They have Kyrie and they have Luka, and they make very, very difficult shots, right?
And they do it so well.
Hats off.
They do it so well.
They do it amazingly, but it's never easy, right? And whereas like the Pacers get, like that story I just told, Pascal was open. Like they did some stuff that made it so that, and it's partially because like their big star Tyrese is like, did he lead the league in assists this year? If he didn't, it was close, right? Like that's good. That helps. Mm-hmm. That makes it work.
Yeah, no, for sure. It blur ball, David calls it. It is fun. Again, this is a great model, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, look, towards the end, Tyrese kind of made some gaffes there. Not kind of, he did. He made big gaffes.
I didn't love the
and
ending.
That ball getting in, it's like no need to play hero ball right there. You had, again, you just mentioned it. With 3.1 seconds, they were able to run something and you had plenty of time to get action involved. There is no need to devolve into, I know for narratives and stories, everyone loves to see that. But guess what? That's easy to guard. When we know this dude's going to shoot every time, okay, that means you're going to have to do what we talked about with Kyrie and Luka. Make a heroic, difficult shot, which sure, that can happen sometimes, but it's probably better to get an open shot, right? A layup at the rim with nobody there wins you the game. Maybe try that next time.
Yeah, there's, every NBA star has the little devil and the little angel, and there's like, the like be the man, and then it's like, get the open shot, like play by, and you can see Tyrese is living in this, right? And like he has both impulses, and mostly he leads the league in assists, mm-hmm. right? But definitely there are times where, including at the end of the game, where I was kind of blown away. Like, so first I think he was guarded by Derek White mm-hmm. with the game on the line. Yep. They just needed any point, right? They were tied. And then Derek White kind of passes him off to Jason Tatum. And this is where it matters that like Luka and Kyrie have physical advantages to get open when super covered, mm-hmm. right? Tyrese does not. He's not the biggest. He's not the most crazy athletic. And but there was a moment there where like both of those defenders stayed with him, which meant
somebody's open.
Ding, ding, ding. And then Miles Turner was like completely unguarded in the paint, and we still had, you can stop the clock. It's literally 3.0 seconds on the clock, and there's even a passing lane. Usually these little breakdowns fail because like you just can't get it there. But Miles Turner has his hands up, and like it's just like, oh my god, he's gonna get a game-winning dunk, and like, or at least he'll get fouled, at least. Right? But Tyrese kept the ball. He didn't even look. And then he shot the most dog shit
I'm like
super covered
with their three best defenders on you. Not bright.
Yeah, that was sad. Yeah. But he won't do it again, I would guess.
I would hope not.
Everyone's having the same conversation you and I are having right now, right? It's like, Jesus.
Well, David often talks about reference points for players. That was a reference points, Mr. Halliburton, right? Like, I'm not going to do that again. That's probably not great.
Yeah. I mean, Rick Carlisle gets them doing a lot of selfless stuff, right? Like, mostly they are not a team that's, like it's hard to get a star to play 31 minutes a game because their points per game go down. They're less likely to make All-Star, All-NBA, and then less likely to get the Supermax, whatever. Like, it really is hard. Like, they want to play 36 minutes and they want to be high on the scoring list because that's just how money works, right? But like, he really talked him into everyone played a little less, and Tyrese included, and as a result, they have fresh bodies, fresher than most. And they also have, also to test Tyrese and Pascal's credit, like a lot of the best 3-point shooters in the playoffs, highest percentage, are Pacers, right? Because these stars are giving them the ball when they're open, right? Like that's great.
I mean, I think it's fun to watch. Everyone who played basketball at some point when they were young, that was probably one of the first things the coach ever told you: pass to the open person. Right? It's like,
do it.
Give the ball to the open man.
Still works.
And I get it. You get on TV and all these clowns, former players like you. Well, you're open for a reason. It's like, yeah, whatever. But point is,
and they get on them like, when LeBron passed to Danielle Marshall in whatever year that was, and everyone loses their mind.
Like, he's all that stupid shit.
Like, you make all this money, you gotta score the bucket. It's like, that's just wrong. Like,
it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Like, that was the perfect move. At the time, LeBron, I mean, like, LeBron was smarter than those dudes when he was 16. He's just like, I made the right basketball play.
Like, that's the goal. The goal is for us to win, right? Not me.
Yeah, and it usually works. But it doesn't work all the time.
But nothing works all the time. That's the point.
Danielle Marshall just hits that shot.
But not even.
LeBron's a genius, right? Like,
so silly. Henry, you've been prolific on the True Hoop website these days. Another piece of yours came out about the conference finalists, and the average payroll of the 4 finalists is 13th, and that's only because the Celtics are 4th, right? Like, and it is incredible. We talked about Indiana; they're like 24th, I believe you said. They're super low, and we talked about how they've got a bunch of just young people on that team, and they go 9 deep, and other teams discards. Hello, Obi Toppin. Hello, TJ McConnell. The people that the teams didn't want, but they gave him royal jelly and an opportunity. And look, Obi Toppin beat his former team in the last round, right? Neesmith has a chance to beat his former team in this round. Like, it's really, really cool stuff. But let's get into that a little bit, because I think the idea of team building and payrolls is one that like fans kind of get but don't. And because for most fans, Henry, it's just get me the people that I know. It's going to help me win these games. But the problem with the people is they cost the most money, right? Like, I can't tell you how many Knicks fans that I see now that they lost, and they're a little sad, but some of them are realistic. Like, look, we were super banged up and hurt. Just get me Kevin Durant, get me Devin Booker, get me. And I'm like, do you really want to do that, though? Yes, you can hit it. I'm like, yeah, but now your cap's eaten up by one person, and if something happens to that one person, you're screwed again. Like, it's a hard concept for people to grasp.
Yeah, it's tough. And we're sneakily entering a hard capped league. It's not perfectly true, but it's close, right? And for a bunch of reasons that are just too boring, and I don't want to say the word second apron that much. But you're not going to have 4 stars.
Yeah.
We already know that. You're only going to have 3. And if one of those big deals goes to someone, you might only have 2, right? If one of those big deals goes to someone who doesn't produce, you're completely out of the running to win the championship.
Screwed.
Right? And so if you get Kevin Durant now, like, how long do you think he's going to be worth that incredible amount of money that he makes now?
Not
right?
long.
Like, like if he's, like I take no joy in this, but like the way the salary cap works, right? Like young players just don't make as much. They are not eligible to make very much. You pretty much have to be in your 30s to get the huge deals. And so if you get him, you're absolutely doomed unless he's amazing. So to me, I'm like, well, let's look at the Pacers model then, right? Like, and you want to have a bunch of guys who are 23 to 31, and you probably want to get them 2 or 3 years before that. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Like, well, right now everybody thinks, for instance, the Portland Trailblazers, my favorite team, are like they're a laughing stock, right? But maybe they're getting the wrong Aaron Nesmith. Right. Maybe they're getting the right ones. I don't know. Yeah. But this is what it looked. This is the Thunder a few years ago, right? It's like the day they drafted Jalen Williams, everyone wasn't like, "Oh, here they go deep in the playoffs." Right. But that's actually how they got deep in the playoffs, right? Like, but so I think you do actually want to sweep together potentially undervalued players, because you win a championship by paying a roster that's worth $200 million, $100 million. Correct. Right? That's just how it happens. Like you if you're not doing that, and so market rate free agents are market rate players. Mm-hmm. Aging superstars are roughly market rate players. Supermax players are sometimes below, like they're poor value, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm like, you have to get real value players, right? Like some of these players, like as you mentioned, the Pacers are 24th in payroll. Like Tyrese Haliburton, I think this is his last year of his rookie deal.
He starts his Supermax next year. Yeah.
Great. That's a great way to build your roster. Yep. That lets you have Pascal Siakam. Correct. Right? Like a bunch of teams could have used Pascal, and he was on the market, but like this is the team that got him because they hadn't spent much money on Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. The Suns didn't get him, right? So I think that you really do want to have, obviously you got to have for sure at least one star, maybe another one, but you cannot go paying fortunes for so-so players, which is that's the James Dolan before this administration of the Knicks. That was the James Dolan model, was like Eddie Curry, right? Tons of money. And he's like, he was like the 80th best player in the NBA. Yeah. It's like, well, you like him and that's great, but like you need to have somebody do 80% of that work for 20% of the money. Yeah. We did a great you and Stephen Alardi did a great post last year or maybe 2 years ago now about bonus wins, right? And we used Duncan Three's wonderful estimated wins calculator, and we figured out based on the salary cap and everything what a win costs in the NBA, right? And it's somewhere around like $3 million for a win. And you multiply that times the amount of wins, right? And so that's how you look at who is being paid about what they should be, who's being paid over, under, whatever. And bonus wins is where you're doing well. And the teams, I want to say 2 years ago, was the Memphis Grizzlies, who coincidentally was a 2 seed that year, right? They led the league in bonus wins, right? Because Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson were all still on rookie deals, or was the first year of Jaren Jackson's his extension, right? So that's how you're able to produce, because, as Henry said, you're basically a 60-win roster, but we're paying you like you're a 48-win roster or whatever the numbers work out to. But that requires work on your team's end. They have to and some luck too, right? You got to draft well and be like, oh, John Morant turns into maybe the best, attacking guard in the league. You get signals like Alexander or whoever. That's what you kind of have to do to make that happen. Not get Bradley Beal and this guy and this guy. It's like no bonus wins there, or not a lot anyway. And I think it might be a little of an argument for drafting older players. Because usually the best value players in the league are like Tyrese Haliburton right now. Trae Young, when we did the analysis before, was number one value in the league because it's the superstar who's still in the rookie deal. That's less likely if you draft him at 18. Almost never happens. It doesn't mean if that's what you do to get the player that you need,
you do it.
But yeah, I think it's, there's a little bit of a cool, I look at this year's draft a little bit with like, a 21-year-old isn't the worst thing ever, right? If they're all about the same and have a bunch of flaws, like the one who's like, maybe closer to their peak at 23, 24 when you draft them and doesn't need so much development, like that's a financial boon to your team.
No, without question. And I think, the big thing with the draft is, right? Fans, because most fans, and when I say I mean casuals, right? Most fans aren't deep into like draft analysis and who this third round, Russian center. No, they don't know any of that shit. They're listening to ESPN, and whoever tells them is awesome. Well, they know that there is no Victor Wembanyama in this year's draft, right? That's every fan knows that. Okay, so now it's, well, what do we do? Well, and to your point, this kid from North Carolina scored 25 points a game. That's the guy we want. And maybe you do, but maybe you want to figure out this draft is probably full of Aaron Neesmiths, TJ McConnells, Naz Reid, maybe like Jaden McDaniels. Mm-hmm. Let's go find 6 of those guys and bring them in.
I really feel like this is the year that more than any, like, NBA players don't generally improve very much. They don't add a lot of skill once they join the league, partially because they don't have time to practice.
Yeah.
But if they do improve, like the most likely way they improve is by adding 3-point shooting. So like a pretty decent strategy is to get like a really good player whose flaw is that, right? The rebuilding Sixers did a ton of this, right? This is Markelle Fultz and Tony Wroten. Remember Tony Wroten was like the best ball handler in the world, but he just couldn't shoot or play defense, and he never learned. So he's out of the league. But if you have this one flaw, then like it's pretty interesting. And this is the year, like this Stephon Castle, like what's his name? Cody Williams, right? Cody Williams, incredible athlete who played injured, but like if he can really shoot. So to me, like this is where the Thunder have a big advantage, right? They have the best shooting coach in the league. Yep. What the hell is his name? Chip England. And with Chip England, this is a great draft, right? Like with Chip England and multiple picks, like get ball handlers who read the court and play good D, and then get 2 of them. One of them is going to become a 40% 3-point shooter.
That's
right? Like that is an amazing thing. If you don't have that, and that's probably 29 teams who don't reliably have an ability to improve people's shooting, then like I don't know if Cody Williams makes sense for you. Like,
and that's the hard part. That's the hard work, though, Henry. Right? And so
it's all a grind.
Looking at this as a fan perspective, right? If you were running a team, you're the basketball ops guy, whatever, and so you're in charge of getting all this together. How are you? Because you're also in charge of the external messaging for the team. How are you getting your staff and your coaches and your players to go out and talk about what we're going to do to the fans, so that they're like, "Oh, we didn't get so and so, we're gonna suck." Like, how are you getting them to understand, guys? It's not about that, right? Like, we have guys who can help us win, but it's gonna take time and build and all that. But fans don't want to hear that shit.
So this is a great question. So there was a moment in time when Kevin Pritchard ran the Blazers, and he was on video kind of taking a victory lap for how well their team was run while they sucked. And because he was doing it. It was all Brandon Roy and all this kind of stuff, right? And he's like, and the league almost excommunicated him for this, right? Like, you're not supposed to take a victory lap unless you've won something, right? And at the same time that was happening, Sam Hinkie was running the Sixers, and no one understood what he was doing. And I, as a human, found it very frustrating. But he was like being very, very thoughtful and long-term planning in ways that like the benefit would accrue to the Sixers and their fans, and not to Sam. But he wouldn't talk about it because he was like, nobody cares about your loser team, right? You talk about it when you're good. They actually, before Sam ran the Sixers, and I promise I'll answer your question. Sam and Daryl Morey were together in Houston, and they used to joke that like what the ideal way to rebuild a team would be to have like twin brother owners, and then you'd like have the one run it for the first period when you're getting all your draft picks and all your together, and then you'd be like, that guy's an idiot. We got to get him out of here. Then you bring in the other one. Everyone's like, yay, he saved us. Because people don't like to think long term, right? Like the moment the Sixers got Joel Embiid, I'm here to tell you, I live close to Philly. People fucking hated it. Like,
look at you now, Sixers fans.
Moment in Sixers history, and people like fucking hate it. And he didn't play for years. And everyone's like, "What are they doing with him? That's stupid." Well, they saved his body. It worked great, right? But everybody in real time thought it was stupid, which is very often how it goes. When you make the great move for your franchise, everybody boos. And like, so what they cheer is like magic wand type stuff, right? They cheer this guy averaged, they cheer Caitlin Clark.
We'll get to her in a minute.
They understand what she does, right? They don't understand what Omax Prosper does, but he does win you games. He will win you games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a time, especially now, because the schedule's so hard on bodies, that like well, okay. The top salary players in the NBA are Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, Damian Lillard, Giannis, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, all out of the playoffs.
Correct. Well,
Your
some didn't
Magic
even make the
wand,
playoffs.
yeah, yeah. Like your Magic wand delivers players like that, and that didn't work, right? So instead we got to grind around like, how do we fit, this Kyrie and Pascal and while they're still kind of in their prime with like these younger players and stick together so we have a bunch of players who can really move. And the answer to that is all like kind of like the secret is there is no secret, it's just like you're gonna have to work every day and improve and get Chip England or 12 Chip Englands,
It's funny you mentioned how fans they boo every move. Knicks fans weren't thrilled when they signed Jalen Brunson to that deal. They're like, "Oh man, 4 years, $100 million for that guy." Bye. I'm like, "Oh, how are we feeling today about that, Knicks fans? Feeling a little different about Jalen Brunson? Hell, not even today. I mean, literally after the first year he was there, you're like, well, maybe we were wrong about that."
It's like, just take my kid. I'll have Jalen Brunson. Like, yeah. He's like as loved right now as like any athlete anywhere.
Yeah,
ever, right?
It is so high right now.
Yeah.
You mentioned Caitlin Clark, and I'm still on this fandom thing because fandom, I mean, that's why we're here, right? Like, because we are fans of basketball. That's why people listen to us because they are fans of basketball. And Caitlin Clark is such an interesting test case in fandom. And again, how it's about how I feel versus what's true, what's logic, and what's rational. So I don't know if you know, but before she was drafted, a lot of the current WNBA players who have accomplished a lot in their careers, your Diana Taurasi's, who's an MVP, multiple-time champion, 14-time all WNBA, an accomplished player, is like, oh, she'll be good, but it's going to take some time. There's going to be a welcome to the league moment where you're like, oh, you're playing against women who've been playing at this level for a long time. Passes and things that were open in college won't be open here. The physicality, it's just, and of course, people talk it as hating and whatever. We got to this stage, Henry, where people don't understand critique and they call it hating. It's like, no, that's just also telling you. And it's not just the WNBA. It happens in every fucking basketball league. When Victor got here, everybody was like, I'm going to dunk on that motherfucker. Right? Like, it's just, this is what you do. It's baptism by fire. That's how you get better. It just is. So she's been struggling. The Fever are 0-5. And there's a lot of talk from our fans about, well, the refs suck. Her coach sucks. The league didn't do her any favors by putting her up against this team or that team. And it's like, no, it's what all those players told her beforehand. Like, she'll be fine, but it's going to be a learning curve. And it's okay.
It's just hard. Like, professional sports is just so hard,
man.
There are people who want to hurt you.
Yes, literally.
They want to hurt your feelings and they don't care if they also hurt your quad or whatever, right? Like they want it's a zero-sum game and they want a bigger piece of that pie. And they've been working at it. And if they're not good at it, they just get somebody else who is, right? Like, it's the best in the world, right? These are the best in the world. There's zero chance it was going to be easy for Caitlin Clark, right? It's just, or anyone. Yeah. There's maybe a little wiggle room for like that same team got Aaliyah Boston the year before, and she happens to be huge. And so that particular advantage carries over.
Yes.
Right? Like no one could shove her around in college and no one shoves her around in WNBA either. Right? So she actually had a pretty fun little first few games, if I recall correctly. And I think she won Rookie of the Year. Is that right?
Yep, she did.
So, it smooths the arrival a little bit if you have a physical advantage. But Caitlin Clark isn't quite like that, right? Like, I guess she's a little big for her position, but like,
which is tall, but like,
But now she's got to figure out how to score. Like, the worst defender she faces now is the best defender she faced in college, right? And like, every night's just tougher, and things happen faster. It's to me, I'm like, it's great.
Yes.
This is where Caitlin Clark is like us.
Yes.
Like, we all have these struggles and she's going to sort it out. And it's going to be adding skills. I don't know what the skill is she has to learn, but like, it's not going to be an easy one. It's like, she's been doing this for a while. She already has like her left hand dribbling down. It's going to be like reading it's going to be crazy stuff that when David Thorpe explains it to us, we're going to be like, huh? Like, wait, what do I have to do exactly? Because it's confusing. It's a tough game, right? Like, but she has to learn that, right? And like, and she will.
She will.
But it's like learning. I feel like, we think that these movement things, now we're veering into book territory. We think it's something you learn in a snap, but it's like learning a language.
Yes.
And we are used to the idea that you would get good at Spanish by like, you go an hour a day for 40 years. And then you were in Spanish 4.
Right.
And you still have Spanish 5 you didn't finish. Right? Like,
that's exactly right.
That's the same way. Caitlin Clark will have she's such a faster learner than most of us. She probably can do it in half the time. But like, okay, so half the time is 2 years.
Yeah.
And then she speaks mediocre Spanish.
Exactly.
You know? I think that's how we learn. I think she had to learn stuff like that. And it takes a while.
It's supposed to. It does. It's just, you know, the conversation around it's just hilarious, and like all these like think pieces about this and that, and it's like, guys, it really isn't that complex, right? Multiple things can be true at once. Her introduction to the WNBA and her arrival is good for the WNBA as a whole, because she has a plethora of fans who want to come and watch her and see her win, right? The part that they don't understand is what you just pointed out. Well, they are like, well, how come she isn't dominating? Like, well, because this basketball is different than that basketball you just watched, right? For all the reasons you just pointed out. It's way harder. Everyone's really good. Like, I mean, you play at Iowa, like, there are games where she's crushing people because they're just, you know, Minnesota's not very good. You know what I mean? They got nobody on that team who would make the WNBA.
Yeah. It's like, you know, when Stephen A went bananas saying that like all the Knicks need to like do whatever they do to show up for Game 7, right? Like, what he's saying is just saying like he wants that, right? Which is just like if we're deciding which restaurant to go to, like let's say you like Thai food and, you know, and say David's allergic to Thai food, right? Like you can get as loud as you want about how much you want that, but now you're not really solving our problem as a group because David has these allergies. I just made that up. But
that was a good one.
But like being loud about what you want is absolutely fine, and it's a worshipped part of sports fandom. We get together as like a cult. We physically get together and scream together because we want
a thing,
this outcome and this thing, right? We want, like, you know, fans always want injured players to play, like, because they want them to be great and go out there and win games. And I think it's fine to be in that headspace of like, Caitlin Clark should be the Michael Jordan of women's basketball, and she should be that tonight because I have tickets tonight. It's fine to want that, right? But like that part of your brain, if you read Thinking Fast and Slow, like is completely divorced from rational thought and like what will make Caitlin Clark best in the long term and how the Fever become contenders and how all your dreams actually come true, what the steps to that are. Like that's what she needs to do, right? Like she needs to do all that stuff. And if you make it fast, then you skip the slow. And like, that's what Tony Roden did.
Why he's not in the league?
Poor Tony Roden.
He caught strays on this podcast. Who even knew?
Well, I know he's killing it in the Philippines right now. I don't know. Like,
listen, it's the reality. Last thing, a bit of news before we came on. The Cavaliers fired JV Bickerstaff, which we kind of sort of saw coming, right? If we're being honest.
Yeah, that's not surprising, really, right?
Yeah, no, not really. Which now means, okay, does that mean Donovan Mitchell inks up and stays? Does Darius Garland go? What are the domino effects now as a result of that?
I don't know, but it seems to me like you don't fire him without knowing who you want.
Yes.
Maybe that's a name we know, maybe it isn't. And then here's my honest to God thought as the Cavaliers are like, they seem like this team on the rise that's super exciting. But then it's like, man, we were talking about you don't get to have someone on a big contract who doesn't produce. Like that's Darius Garland. Like they have a real problem of, I think he has like the 30th biggest contract, but he's not worth it. Which kind of dooms them unless they shuffle the deck a different way. Yeah. So I don't think there's any reason to think that they wouldn't build everything around Evan Mobley moving forward. And I love him, but part of me is like, man, if I were a rebuilding team right now, it might be an interesting time to just throw everything at getting Evan Mobley, because the top brass is going to look bad if they lose Darius, right? And they can't move the other big
Donovan Mitchell.
So it's like Donovan Mitchell. Sorry, what am I talking about? But yeah, so to me, I'm like, I don't know what's happening there. Maybe they know. Maybe they have it all sorted out, and maybe it's all going to be great. They certainly have a lot of young talent.
They do.
But part of me is like, man, like if I ran, whatever, the Kings or whatever, like right now, I would make like a would make the Kings offer for Evan Mobley right now.
Yeah.
Because it might actually help both teams.
Because he's ascending right now. He's I think this year is going to be.
Love him.
I know you do. That's your. That's your. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, guys. It's so funny. We have these fun group chats on Troop, and we're always talking, and I'm like always joking. I'm like, Henry, why do you hate 30 all over 30 NBA players?
We're going to talk for an hour right now.
And he doesn't actually hate all players, but it's so fun because if you listen to Henry talk, why is he always talking about these young guys? He doesn't want us to get booked. He doesn't want us to get KD. He doesn't, and it's not that he doesn't want you to get those guys. He's like, they cost you too much money. And it makes building the rest of your team impossible. And if they're not awesome, well, now what? Now I have no money left. I spent it all.
You were like, Henry, why do you wait everyone over 30? I was like, I'm 49, bro. Like, I love old athletes. Like, legit, this is an article. If I had like a million hours, I would do a deep dive and write an article about like, it was always weird to me when LeBron and his contemporaries, like the Banana Boat crew, they lavished so much time on the Players Association.
Well,
they were like
know why.
Very, very involved. And like, in fact, what they did is they gifted their generation of players like huge pay raises at the expense of younger players. And we're really feeling now it's just out of whack. And that bonus wins analysis, like these older players make way too much. The owners like it because it saves them from the Kevin Garnett conundrum, right? When you have a very young player, they don't know which one is the good one. And so if Kevin Garnett could demand infinite salary, we didn't have rookie scale, then some of those deals would be terrible.
Correct.
Adam Morrison would have gotten a huge deal.
That would have been bad.
So basically we have the back room of the billionaires and the LeBron veterans, and they were like, you know what? Why don't we just put the rookies all on this little tidy scale where they make basically peanuts, and then we'll take all the money of what they earn and we'll just give it to us. And everybody likes it because once they're older, you don't look stupid for lavishing money on Adam Morrison, right? But we're going to have a course correction, or we're going to have to stop giving out these like right now, every star is driving themselves to this supermax moment. But we're going to have teams that are like, sorry, buddy, like we're not giving you the full supermax because you're not good enough.
Well, I think the Knicks may have found a way to dodge that because they signed Brunson as a free agent. He won't get the supermax, even though he made All NBA. So they avoid that little, and that $41 million, or whatever that extra money is going to matter to this team in its long-term building. So these are the conundrums your teams have to face. I mean, look, honestly, I said this before, all these billionaires, like, screw you all and your money. Like, you all love capitalism in the real world. No, no drafts, whatever. You pay people what you think they're worth. Do your job. Hire people who know,
figure it out.
And you figure it out. If you fuck up and pay Joe Smith $1 million and he sucks, well, that's on you. Sorry. I should have known better. I just, because I don't know what else the recourse is, because the vets aren't giving the money back, right? They're not going to agree to give the money back. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's I feel sad for like if you have a capped out team with old players,
you're fucked.
I mean, I throw it back in my face if I'm wrong, but like I think that the Bucks and the Suns
they're fucked.
are like, it's going to be very sad. There might be some great moments along the way, but like it takes forever. It takes forever. First they have to get bad before they get good. And they don't even have their picks. Like it's just
there you go.
Like this is a new kind of cooked. Like maybe the Clippers are heading into that too.
They might be,
where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is like, as much as I want you to have the fun moments of winning and pumping your fists in the air and having stars, like that's exactly what you're not going to have because you spent all the money already,
money spent. And Ishbia, like, Suns owner, he's like, no, we're fine. I'm like, do you believe you're fine? Or is it just bluster and like, I'm the number one mortgage company now. It's going to be the same in the NBA. I'm like, it doesn't quite work that way, my guy.
You forwarded that thing where like the NBA has a deal with his mortgage company too.
What are we actually doing here? Like Rocket Mortgage is the official mortgage. What? How is that okay?
It feels like a circus at times, right? It's just like, oh my God. Somebody had a pot of money to put some stuff on a court and so like, yeah, put it on the court. Great. It's just they only just like, come on, like all the Bitcoin, Binance, like all of those ones are NBA sponsors, right? They're all these kind of like pyramid schemes and whatever. And it's like, Yeah, all that. Let's do all that. Like,
Let's do. Yes, yes, please.
yeah.
Give us all.
We'll just rename the Heat Arena later. You know,
Which is
like
essentially what they did, right? It was the FT whatever. What was it? The
FTX.
Yes, FTX, and now it's like
Yeah.
the spacer, some weird. I'm like, wait, what happened here? And again, but those are things that like go under the radar. No one talks about it except here at TrueHoop.com.
Shoddy business, man. There's some shoddy business out there, and the NBA is like, yeah, we can work this out. We can have the Sleep Train Express Arena, whatever the hell that was. What was that one?
You gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. Well, listen, if you guys want to follow everything going on behind the scenes in the NBA, of course, you know True Hoop's the place. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the playoffs. We'll see you on Monday. Take care.